when this whole Harvey Weinstein thing came out in the last like 2 weeks, when I was deciding, is this the time I tell my story? And I was just looking online and trying to find videos and, recalling everything that happened in my mind from this time 10 years ago, 11 years ago. And I found a blog of a soldier who was at one of our shows in Afghanistan or Iraq. And he just talks about his experience at the show just as a guy in the audience. And he said, Al Franken and Leeann Tweeden were great co-MCs, and Al told a couple of jokes, and then Al goes in for a kiss or more from Leeann and fails. And I just thought, yeah, that's exactly what happens. And he failed every time, because that's what happens on stage. And I thought it would be, the joke would always have been, to me, the funny part was, it would have been like Al would have, in my mind, Al would have just come in for a kiss, and I would have turned my face, or I would have put my hand on his mouth, and that would have been the funny part, right? That would have been like this old guy coming in for the kiss from the hot girl or whatever. The skit would have been to these young troops, and it would have been funny because it was comedy, right? Obviously, it turned out completely different, but, so I had to act my way through the rest of the shows for the next 10 days, 2 weeks. And I just made sure I was never alone with him again. I didn't tell the Sergeant Major of the Army what happened. I didn't tell our USO rep, because what was I going to do? Be the troublemaker? Be like, okay, I'm going to MC every part of the show for the hour except the 10 minutes I'm on stage with Al? I just sucked it up. I'm a strong girl. I'm a sportscaster, so I deal with guys every day. I'm just going to fake it and act like an actress and do this part with him, and then not talk to him for the rest of the tour. I mean, it was a big tour with a lot of people. I didn't socialize with him. I didn't talk to him for the rest of the tour. I made sure I was never alone with him again. I mean, we're in tight quarters, but there were a lot of people around, so I just made sure I was never alone with him again. And so I didn't have to deal with him in that respect again, other than when we were on stage. And then, little petty things that I had to deal with, just snide comments. We would do autograph sessions after the shows. Of course, they would set up tables. And because there would be sometimes thousands of troops at an event, and we would only have so much time. So there would be long tables for all the, the country music artists and the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, who were very popular, by the way. And then, instead of like trying to have a single file line of 1,000 guys trying to come down and get everybody's autograph, they would open it up to where everybody, if you wanted somebody's certain autograph and there was only time for people to wait in one line, they would just open it up to where people could just stand in the line that they would want, instead of filing it through like this. So sometimes there would be, honest to God, nobody in Al Franken's line. So people would line up. The girls would have long lines. Some of the country music artist guys would have long lines. So I would always be sat next to Al, because that's just how they always set it up. And so I would always sort of have my back to him and whatever, and I'd be sitting next to the other people, and we'd have lines, we would sign autographs, and I mean, it was just hours of signing and taking pictures with troops. And one time he didn't have people in his line, and I would see things out of the corner of my eye, and I'd see, like a hand and a picture, one of my autograph pictures go like this, and and I would look over one time, and, one time I would just see, and a picture would come back, and it would be, my face with devil horns and the devil tail and the pitchfork and the goatee, and, I mean, these are the things I'm dealing with, right? Like, he draws me as the devil. I'm like, okay, childish, belittling, whatever. It's just like, that's 2 weeks of this is what I'm getting at. Sorry. And so whatever. So I make it through the 2 weeks of that. And then we're on our way home. We leave, pretty sure it's Bagram Air Base. We're leaving out of Afghanistan. And every time you take off from a base when you're in the middle of combat, you always wear a Kevlar helmet and a flak vest. Because when you leave from in the middle of a war zone, you do wear your gear, because small arms fire, or even an RPG like a rocket-propelled grenade can pierce the armor or pierce the skin of an airplane. And so a lot of times you either sit on Kevlar or you wear it because you can be shot at through a plane. So you're wearing it as you take off until you get high enough altitude where you're out of that reach, and then you can take it off. So I'm wearing it. I fall asleep because I can fall asleep usually before the plane even takes off. So I'm sleeping up against the side of the plane. And in the photo, if you see the photo, beside me is Mark Wills, a country singer. He's also asleep. So I'm sleeping, which anybody that knows me, I sleep anywhere, anytime. So I'm asleep. And there are photographers on the trip, and I'm pretty sure it was probably the photographer of the tour that took the picture. But they give you CDs as you leave that have, you know, behind the scenes photos of you on the entire tour that they give you when you leave. And I get this, and I open it up when I get home. I probably opened it the next day, and it was a photo of Al doing his, you know, this on my breast, like looking at the camera, just kind of smirking and smiling, like, hey, look at me. And I took that as the, you know, the final, like, like I got the last laugh. You know, I mean, he knew I wouldn't see it until I got home and, you know, was away from everybody else. And you know, like I said, the to know it in the context of the entire trip and what happened in the entire 2 weeks is telling to me, and just the fact that he just thought he could get away with it, and that it was okay, and that it was funny. And you know, I knew all these years later that, oh well, I thought it was going to be funny. You know, I thought, you know, oh, the comedian, I thought it was going to be I thought it was a joke, I was in bad taste, or I thought it was going to be funny and I guess it wasn't, or, you know, it was poor taste or whatever. I mean, nothing like that is ever funny. I mean, is it funny if he does that to your sister or your daughter or your wife? I mean, that's just all of those things. But like I said, in context of already assaulting me backstage and all the little petty things he was doing to belittle me and how he treated me, and sort of, you know, in succession, and then it ended with that, and then how I was left to feel like, without being able to say whatever I needed to say to his face, that's how I, you know, I'm like, oh, great, while I was sleeping you do that to me, and then I can't even say anything to him. So that's just sort of how it all happened and how it finished.
So when he